Hey there. No, this isn't my podcast venue. This is me doing a little intermediary midweek action. I've got a fresh, wow, oh my gosh. That has such an odor to it. Oh my gosh, this is really good. From the Calico Cidery in Julian, I got something that I hadn't seen before. This is called Winesup. Winesup. Yeah, let's give this a try. I'm not going to drink too much of it, just a single glass. This is a response video to both Dave and Riki, Uncle Weed, if you like, and Paprika Girl J_JP on the X platform. Let me have a little sip to get going here. There's a real bite in the air tonight. A chill that's finally arrived. Lots going on in my life right now, but I'm not going to touch on any of that. I'll save those stones for Thursday night. I'll save most of this cider for Thursday night as well. But let me get a little closer to make sure that the audio comes through clearly. I have just one simple stone here. It's actually not a piece of stone. It's a piece of tile that I found in the desert. Some history there, right? You know, this is quite suitable and apt for the topic that I want to talk about. This piece of tile I found out in the desert, represents something that was once human born, some sort of construction that was done out here of some sort. Someone made something, a home perhaps, maybe took the time to tile a bathroom or something like that. Maybe there's a woman of the house, and the man who built the house made the extra mile to make it a little more comfortable. All that is gone. Gone away. No trace but the tile that I might find here and there along the way. How lucky that I picked that up, pure happenstance, from my collection of stones, because it represents the topic I want to talk about, which is, this is a response video to a topic that Dave brought up, and then Riki responded to, and I'm going to add to. Namely, how we curate our art, whatever it is that we do in life to express ourselves, writing or guitar work like Dave's do. Well, I don't want to start on Dave because he's got all kinds of stuff that he does. So do you, Riki. Everything from your dancing, your kimono work, Japanese, of course, your professional field as well, with filmmaking, etc. Dave, and all the different things that you do. And it seems like just about everybody I know has something of some sort that they want to do. Now, I'm going to hearken to that old term, the Barbarous Yelp. I don't remember who wrote that or who said that, but it's suitable. We all, in the course of our lives, strive to live our lives and usher forth our barbaric yelp. The question is, who will hear that yelp, and how long will the echo sustain? In some cases, a few of us rise to the point that we don't have to worry about that anymore. People, of course, of eminence. I'll pick out of my thoughts Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway, by virtue of the beauty of his writing, by virtue of the fact of winning a Nobel Prize for literature, etc., was guaranteed that his work would be curated through the ages. There's no need for it, even down to his notes. Even Steinbeck is another one example. I mean, I've even read Steinbeck's journal about the writing. So even the writing itself and the journaling of the writing all gets captured, curated, collected, studied by scholars, etc. But those are the lucky ones. Those are the few of us that and by us, I'm not including myself in that august group, but I'm just simply pointing out that some people don't have to worry about curating their art. The rest of us, now I'll use the us, I included in this us, have to think about what we're going to do with our art in our absence once we're gone. And there's different approaches. Dave is undertaking the approach of, he uses a term that I'm surprised I'd never heard before. Dave, you were the first person to introduce this term. We've all heard of minimalism, but Dave is pursuing something called maximalism. And he's got just the right place for it with his Kura storehouse here in Japan, or there in Japan. Another group to which I am not belonging. the Japan crowd. He's also doing something called personal archaeology, the act of, again, to overuse the word curate, which really is the right word, his life and his endeavors. So he's making a strong effort to catalog, collect, catalog, and organize his life's work so that he can leave it behind. Riki then chimed in, and this was not the purpose of the video that Dave made strumming his guitar, or was it a ukulele? But it came through, and then Riki picked up on that and responded about how she felt motivated or inspired by Dave's organization to do something similar, but was struggling a little bit, per her words, with the bits and pieces here and there, the started projects that are not yet complete, where to put them all together, and it's a tough thing to do. And I felt, after hearing the two of you talk on this topic, that I would like to weigh in my own opinion, because I have an opinion on this, opinion born of experience that maybe others might find interesting. Where to start? Dang, I was thinking about this all the way driving around today. I drove way out down into the deep desert today with the dog Rudy. And I had it all organized. Now it's all gone. Because I seem to, in the last couple of weeks, I seem to touch on topics on my videos that are hard for me to talk about. I need a little more of this later. You know why they're hard for me to talk about? Because let me add another log too. It's too much cider. More wood. The reason it's hard for me to discuss is two things. One, it's revealing of my dark inner self. And two, it makes people uncomfortable. My experience talking about these things, I always encounter people throwing up protest. So, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to take another swig and I'll swing up the courage. Okay, here we go. My opinion on this matter is that I am not a maximalist or a minimalist. My approach to my legacy, for lack of a better term, is twofold. And I'll give a description of the first, and then I'll give a title to the second. My legacy consists of two things. One, and the most important of my legacies, is the fact of my daughter. The fact that my daughter is raised to adulthood, completed her schooling, and is able to support and take care of herself, not just her person, but her mind as well. That she has a good grasp of reason and is able to be her own steward, so to speak. That is my most important life objective, and the thing that I've taken the most care to date to curate and perform. That work is largely done. My daughter is grown and on her own. Now I will always be her dad. I'll always have this or that responsibility relative to that. But that mission is complete. So that leaves me then with my decided legacy. That's, well, I did decide to become a father, but parenthood is almost like a biological thing, right? It's a mandate that comes out of our loins. There's a mandate, another mandate that comes out of my head. This head. Okay, maybe I've had too much. What do I want to leave behind of my barbaric Yelp? So I promised that I would not just list it, but I'd give it a title. My legacy shall be analogous to a message in a bottle. You know, the type that you roll up and you put in a bottle and toss into the sea. And you hope that it doesn't crack on your rocks and somehow makes it to a far shore for someone to read, so that it'll survive the waves in the sea. What does that mean? That means that I don't think very much of what I've created, and I've created a lot in terms of writing, poetry, art. Pardon me, excuse me as I do this. I've created so much over time, and I've let it all go deliberately. It's all gone. That's because I've worked to distill down the essence of my message into something very simple and portable, namely one single book. My book, Going Alone. Now, it's true that if I had it on a shelf, if you had a library of books written by Kurt Bell, there'd be 4. Sometimes I say 5 because I'm working on another one. But 4 books that would be there on that shelf. But really, you could peel 3 of them away, and just one book is all that remains. That's all I want of my legacy. And the interesting thing is that it's already done, completely done. Not a single word needs to ever change in that book. It's finished. So I'm all done. I can finish the video, right? Not quite. I think I need to explain myself why I have that attitude. Okay. 2 things. 1, my own experience. 2, the observation of my life. I know, it sounds like this is going to get boring. Hopefully it'll be interesting. There's going to be Yakuza involved. Hang on for the Yakuza. When my dad died, I was in my 30s. And as much as I respected the man and cared for him, his things slipped out of our fingers. Largely because of, the process of handling an estate and selling his house and all that kind of stuff. We just whittled it down to just a few items, and all I have left of him, in terms of anything that would have been his barbaric Yelp, is a single small journal that he wrote. Right? That's also informative about why I have a single book. Right? That was because of carelessness on my part. I was too young, even though I was in my mid-30s, too young, too confused, too immature to care. And I was someone that really cared. But I didn't care enough to be careful with what my dad left behind. Largely because it was all mixed up and mixed in. Unlike Dave, who's carefully, creating collections. It'll be very clear when it comes time to settle Dave's estate. I'm sure his daughter will be able to go through and very easily, sort out, this is the important stuff, and keep it in the Kura. We can go through it accordingly. So that was interesting to me. That happened to me in my mid-30s. But something else happened that was even more, because that could be just chopped up to my carelessness, my immaturity. And it would have made me, I'm bearing the lead, which is basically that basically the point is, ancestors don't give a damn. If children barely give a damn. I mean, I have nothing. I don't even know what my great-grandparents' names were. I have nothing from them. Some families are lucky they have a few heirlooms that pass down. But for the most part, by the time we get to 2, 3, 4 generations out, almost everything is gone for most of us. That's because all it takes is one careless grandchild or great-grandchild who doesn't give a damn, and the whole lot is gone. So it's a little bit preserving a great quantity of our work. It will only survive as long as our families care. Now, I'm going to hammer this point home a little bit now by my promise story about the Yakuza. So I talk a lot about the fact that I was an antique dealer for 5 years in Japan. And a little bit of story to build up to it, because they're an interesting group. When I first started my business, I needed to secure antiques. Well, there was a antique flea market that took place twice a month at one of the big shrines in Shizuoka City. And I would go there and walk up and down the shrine vendors. They would sit on the ground there with all their stuff and, pick out what I wanted to buy, take it back and list it and sell it. I did that for quite a few months, and I started to get to know this people there who always were there, the same people, and they always sat in exactly the same place. Later I learned there was a hierarchy. What the hell was that? Fire? There was a reason the people sat where they were. There was a hierarchy, like I said. I don't really speak Japanese well. There was one young man who spoke English fairly well, and he kind of befriended me. He liked me. His name, I'll leave his name out of it. After a while, getting to know him, he asked me, he said, we have an auction in the middle of the month in Shimizu. Would you like to come? Because he knows I want to buy these things. You could maybe find some stuff you like. Sure, I'll go. So he gave me the address information, and I went the next month on the allotted date. And when I showed up there, it was kind of like a lot behind a hospital. And there was a mountain behind it. That mountain figures in some of my other stories, but not this one. The man that lived on the mountain. And I came there, and I went into these crate things, and the look on their faces as I walked in the door, this foreigner that could barely speak any Japanese. And then my friend came walking over and welcomed me in, kind of began introducing me around, and I learned I did that for 5 years, maybe four and a half-ish years, because it took me about half a year to get to the point that I was invited to that. I was a regular fixture at this event for every month. And the reason I really learned that this was the case was that the man that I had met that had invited me was the son of the owner of the auction and the auctioneer. So he had all the clout. But what I didn't know at the time was that all of those guys were basically kind of like a branch of Yakuza. And there was a big boss involved, and I did meet him eventually. That's the mountain story. He had me up to the house, actually. That's a whole other story. I won't get into that one here. But the thing was, because the son of the owner invited this foreigner in, everybody accepted it. And within 6 months, I was a regular, and I even had my specialty, the stuff that I liked, all that kind of stuff. So all that's aside, right? Okay, so I was an insider. Here's the point that can be circling back to the thing about the curation and the keeping of the goods. I learned something in that 4.5 years of attending that auction monthly. I learned something about humanity that changed the way I handle my artistic output. So here's how it works. The Japanese are very organized. Just a little. Now I feel it starting to warm up. And a nice full moon tonight, too. Almost full. So Japanese are very organized. It turns out each of the men that would attend that event had a territory in the greater Shizuoka area. They were the ones, and these are low on the totem pole of organized criminals, so to speak, right? The basic, the organized crime has its hands in various things. One of the things that they have their hands on in is the business of disposing of, is basically estate sales, like we would have here in the West, right? Whereas in an estate sale here, you would hire somebody to come in, put price tags on everything, organize the house after someone died, have a date, everybody comes in, they've got a cash register and they cash out, right? They're cashing out the person's estate. I'll come back to that. In Japan, it's a little bit different. Usually the goods of the family will remain in the house until the house is destroyed. A lot of these people that are doing the Akia hunter thing, they'll find these old Akia and they'll be chock full of people's stuff in there, right? But the way that it works is there's usually someone, their specialty is that when the demolition company, they have a deal with the demolition company. Before the demolition company comes, they will come in and they will clean out all the goods. They'll go up into the attic, grab all the stuff. And it's kind of like, remember that show on cable TV where, like, you get a storage bit locker and you bid on it, maybe $2,000. You don't know what's in there, but whatever's in there, you get it, right? You don't know what you're gonna get, So that's what would happen with these. Now these men, all of them were men, would have a territory within the greater Shizuoka area, and they had contracts with the demolition companies, and they would go in and, before the demolition would occur, they would remove all the goods, put them in their grubby little vans or trucks or whatever. You see where this is headed, right? Then, in the course of every month, they would come to this auction event with all their trucks, and they would unload all the stuff that they got. They would pick through it, right? Just the best stuff and throw out all the garbage. And then we would have this auction event, and this auction event was fascinating. There was this long floor, these tatami mats that went like 30 feet down the runway, like a model runway. And then the most senior men would sit at the front, right? And then their hierarchy, they would rank all the way down. The junior men would stand behind them. The auctioneer was up at the front. I, as the foreigner, would be way in the back. I knew my place, and I would be way in the back. Anyway, before the auction started, all of the goods would be lining the walls on shelves, and you could come in there. You'd get there an hour and a half early or something like that. You'd walk through, look at all the items, write down what you want to bid on, what you think it might be worth, and then you wait for the auction to start. And the minions bring that stuff around, slide it down until it gets to the auctioneer. The auctioneer raises it up and he says, well, look at this, a box full of soroban, abacuses, right? Look at this, it's got some beautiful kanji on the back. These are from the Edo period, depending on the bead count, right? What do you guys give me for these? Now you know that a soroban at the flea market can get is worth about 500 to 1,000 yen. So they would ask for the box of 5 of them. If they could get them for 1,000 yen, that would be a fine. They'd make a nice profit off of that. So everybody knows the values of these things. Everybody knows what they're going to bid on these things. Now the funny thing was, there's specialists. There's guys that specialize in various certain things. Like some guys are specialists in ceramics, others are specialists in art. Some know tea goods, some know scrolls. Scroll guy was my favorite because he would open up the scrolls and he could tell you all about it based on it, whether it was a piece of junk, whether it was a work of art, etc., etc. I loved it. It was the favorite part of my job. Now, I'm only going to labor this a little more. I'll get back to the point in just a second, but just to let you know, my specialty was the stuff. Wow, something's got the hounds going. When one ranch after another starts howling. I was the guy that took the stuff that nobody else wanted. And the auctioneer could count on me. Like, for example, if a box of Hina Ningyo, Girls' Day dolls came down, nobody wanted those things. Even if they were from like the Meiji period, handcrafted, hand carved. You pull the head off, you get the little bamboo stalk in there and the straw inside. Beautiful pieces of art. Nobody wants old Hina dolls because there's this like a superstition about them. But the master, who would be like, okay, here's this box of Meiji era Hina Ningyo, right? There's like 20 dolls in there from some Girls' Day doll set that's been sitting in the attic of a kura for a century. And who will give me 100 yen? Nobody. You'd look around, say, Kato. That's how they called me in Japan. My name's Kurt. They call me Kato. Kato. I go, hi, and I get myself a box of Hina Ningyo. I had tons of them back in my warehouse because I was the guy that always said yes. Anyway, okay, here's the point of this whole long thing. I'm sorry I've dwelled on this so long. I hope you found it interesting. Here's the thing. Here's the sober point. I learned something doing this, in this process. And here's what I learned. Families, for the most part, don't give a damn about your art, about what it is that it's important to you. Families, for the most part, don't give a damn about you. Okay, maybe your kids will. If you're lucky, maybe your grandkids will. Your great-grandkids won't know who you are. If there's anything left, might hold on to it if they're the sentimental type, but probably not for long. Okay, there's our exceptions, right? There's the Kennedys probably who have stuff that goes way back generation after generation. I'm sure there's lots of families like that out there that are exceptions to this general rule that I'm describing. But the risk for the common folk like me is that the stuff that's important to me will only be important to my daughter in a sentimental sense, unless she's got some exceptional sentimentality. And less so for every generation thereafter. So my stuff is doomed. And here's the reason why I say that. I told you that what these men did was that they would go through the houses and clean the houses of all the stuff that was left behind before the demolition crew came through and demolished the place down. So I got to see on the shelves, there would be, each shelf would have from each of the vendors. I was looking basically at a shelf at the refuse, the remains of a single household. And I'm here to tell you, everything was there. Everything was there. The ledgers, the housewares, the journals, the notes, the business articles, and even the family photos. And it's not like it was just once in a while that I would find a household that had given up all their family photos. It was time after time after time again. Sure, you can say, oh, the families didn't know that they were there, and you're probably right. They didn't know that they were there. But they didn't even bother to check. They just let them go. Doing this for 4.5 years, seeing how family after family eventually dissolved into nothing. The important stuff that the families left behind dissolved into nothing. Collections of razors, collections of this and that and the other thing that someone had worked on for their life. The papers were the ones that got me. The photos got me more still. Made me realize how intangible the sentiment is. Sentiment attaches itself to the things that the human being assigns that sentiment to. Once that human is gone, there's no guarantee that anyone else will find that sentiment applicable to that thing. And this is true not only of objects, but of art as well. And we can't say that it's just the Japanese. We here in the United States do the same thing. I've been to plenty of estate sales just out of curiosity, and seen plenty of stuff that was of a highly personal nature there for 50 cents or $1, because no one gives it down. So, rounding up that story and getting to the 30-minute mark, about to make my point, I realized through that experience, through the experience of being an antique dealer in Japan, seeing firsthand the remains of households, one after the other, just brought to ruin as the house was brought to embers, to ashes, not just to ruin, to rubble, and the treasures within given away for nothing to strangers who would have no regard, and just let them go and probably mostly throw them all away. To my own experience of the same thing here in the United States with estate sales, and then my own personal experience of having done the same thing inadvertently with my own father's memories and his own efforts. Now, to circle back full round, I decided after all that experience, maybe you can call it cynical experience, but I think it's true, that instead of gathering all the bits and pieces of my creative life, I would instead distill it down into a message that I could put into a bottle and throw that bottle into the sea of mortality beyond my life and hope it washes upon some shore where it might find some relevance. Now, my art is of the type that can be put into a bottle. If you're the type of art, what I'm saying can't be applicable, might not be applicable to someone, for example, who is a poet or an actual artist, where each canvas is its own expression, or the poem, each poet where each poem is its own expression. You need to keep all that stuff, collect it all together in some way, find a way to send it into the future beyond your years. But for me, my artistry, my barbaric yelp, boiled down to a set of ideas curated out of a lifetime of experience, distilled from years of hard effort and editing into a single book, just a little over 300 pages long, called Going Alone. Sure, I have those other books, like I said, but those other books, if you were to look at the 4 books that I've written so far, they are basically the ramp up and the wind down to the one in the center, Going Alone. That is the book that is my story. It tells the experience that I've had of my life, what I gained of that experience, what was important, and how I've used that in my daily endeavors ever since. I don't care about all the extra stuff. Like I said, it's all gone. All my art from the past, all my writing, it's all gone because it was all practice. It was all in, what do you call it? The grist in the mill, right? The workup, the ramp up, the endeavor towards striving towards the practice to get to the point that I could write Going Alone, edit Going Alone, and then complete that book. When my daughter dies, now I've not settled yet. I'm still in America. I have a couple more months to get to Japan. Not when my daughter dies, when I die, hopefully before her, and she comes back to help her mother, hopefully I die first, help her mother deal with her father's things, she ain't going to find much. There'll be a library of unread books, which she won't need to keep because they weren't stuff Papa read yet, because I don't keep books that I've read. I get rid of them. She might find my iPhone, which is a tool that I use for all of this. And she'll find one book, Going Alone, sitting on a shelf, and she knows full well what that is. I've made quite clear to her that that is Pop's barbaric yelp. And she might find a few little stones here and there that I've collected. I'm partial to stones. Nothing else. As a result, there's very little chance that she's going to throw that away. It's the only thing I'm going to leave her, besides everything that I own in the world. You get my point, right? And I'm hoping that little message in a bottle, that one book, Going Alone, will then pass, if Emily chooses to have a family, to her child, and on and on and on. I'm hoping to improve the possibility of continuance by virtue of the facet of simplicity. A simple hardbound, and the hardbound is important, it's durable, a simple hardbound edition of Going Alone, personalized with my writing, my handwriting in it, my illustrations in it, to make it a little more hold on to-able. That's my message in a bottle to my daughter. Now, I've done something else. I finished the book in 2018. And since 2018 till now, middle of October 2024, I've been sending the book forth, copies of the book forth, to anybody who is interested. Hundreds and hundreds of copies. Basically, on my YouTube channel and my social media, I let people know that if anybody wanted a copy, just let me know. I'll send it to them free of charge. Signed, illustrated. I put little hand illustrations in there. Sign it, etc. And at my own expense, I've sent hundreds of copies all around the world. Some people have even gone so far, and maybe some, more than one, to have taken the book and given it to their local library so that the book will sit in the library shelves. So what I've done is I've seeded my little message in a bottle to the bookshelves, the homes, and the libraries of hundreds of people and hundreds of communities all around the world, in the English-speaking world for the most part. See what I've done? Strategy is the message in the bottle. But I can throw as many bottles in the sea as I can, as I want, as long as there's interest. And that was the key, was finding people that had an interest in the bottle, interest in the contents of the bottle, that is. One last thing, and then we'll be done. 36 minutes in. Also, those of you that have seen some of my videos or seen my content on X or any other social media platform, Facebook or whatever, might have been struck by the fact that I am, for lack of any better word, prolific in my content creation. Relentless in my content creation, from my daily good life meditation to my sharing of older videos to my 3 shorts a day on YouTube to my incessant messages in Discord, in the various Discord servers. I am relentless. And if you think I'm relentless now, wait till you see till I get back to Japan and I'm no longer burdened by a job. It's going to be, I keep warning people, you're going to want to unsubscribe to me because I'm going to be sending out messages, sending out dispatches to the internet all the time. But how does that relate to your message, to your message in a bottle? Everything that I do on social media and YouTube is infused with my book. If you haven't noticed already, almost everything that I share finishes with the hashtag going alone. That's because I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission my book is not a story. It's a creed. It's a way of living. It's a set of objectives and principles. And the story that wraps around that about how I came about developing those and what the purpose of these is and how I use them. That's the key point, how I use them. I am 60 years old. I will use the rest of my life to send out with every video, every social media post, a little message, a little piece in a bottle, the larger story in my book, Going Alone. If only for the purpose of having that little bit wash upon the shore of someone to whom it might do some good. Then, when I'm dead, which will be much sooner than I probably imagined, it won't even matter if my daughter doesn't keep the book. Because the content that I've added to the internet, which is all on free content platforms, I don't really share anything to any place where I have to page. My website is not important to me. I know that after I'm dead, the credit card will expire and the website will go dark. But I imagine my content on YouTube will survive, and most of my social media posts as well. And then the books that I've sent to all the hundreds of people around the world, and sitting in the little library shelves here and there. So there. That's my answer to the question of how to deal with my barbaric Yelp. Whether it be through curation, distillation, propagation, or something of a little bit of all of that. Basically, it's a single message sent out the best I can to as many as I can in the little bit of time that remains. With that, I'll close. 40 minutes in. Sorry it took a while to get this out. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Riki, for thanks, Dave, for introducing the subject, and Riki for perpetuating it. This has been fun. It's like the old response videos days. I hope we get to do more of these. Till later, be safe, but never ever too safe. Take care.